Hi, everybody. Welcome to our session tonight on Help, My Child Won't Do the Work. If you're encountering some motivation problems with your child in homeschooling, this is the place to be. Now, unfortunately, I have to head out to a board meeting. So I'm going to record this and I won't be around for questions at the end, but please email me and I can help you out individually. So this webinar tonight is presented by Alberta Homeschooling Association. And I'm going to just turn off the video now just because it eats up bandwidth and it's kind of distracting. So this is me. Hi. We'll just turn that off. Okay, moving forward, here we go. So I'm Judy Arnall, and I am a Canadian Certified Family Life Educator. I'm certified in the Brain Story, and I have been homeschooling my children now for 20 years. So my three oldest have graduated university, and I'm happy to say they're all working in their first career jobs, which is great. So they're definitely off the family payroll. And my fourth son, he's attending university right now in second year. And then my last child is working his way through self-designed high school. So he's busy doing that and playing a lot of Fortnite. We have new books out. We have the Happy Homeschooling Handbook, and it's updated every year just because some little niggly regulations change every year. So if you want a copy, all proceeds go to our organization to fund our website and our newsletter and things like that. We also have, I've written a book called Unschooling to University. It's 384 pages of amazing information. If tonight's webinar doesn't work, maybe you want to try reading this. It talks about the 61 benefits of unschooling, and also why unschooling is you never have motivation problems with your child because they learn what they want to learn. I've also written books on parenting. I'm a total advocate of non-punitive parenting and education. So I've written a book on how to get a grip on parenting anger, children's anger, stress, and when you've dealt with that, how to solve the problem without using any punishments whatsoever and focus on building relationships. Again, you can find us on Facebook. Alberta Homeschooling is our main group. And I think you guys are awesome. You know, I think parents and teachers should have a tip jar on their table because it's an amazing job. And, you know, we do it for love. We don't do it for money. So a tip's kind of nice. This webinar is copyrighted 2019. We feel free to view it, but please don't download it and distribute it. And the main focus is that we want to leave all doors open. We assume that your child's going to go finish grade 12 courses, perhaps go to post-secondary, but you don't want to stream them too early. You don't want to cut things off. So this won't apply tonight. So the future of education. We are moving, and Alberta education is moving from teaching children knowledge, skills, and attitudes to a more concept-based curriculum. So more variety, more flexibility, more wideness. And it's almost heading toward unschooling in that type of wideness that children can focus on what they really want to learn. Now, in Alberta education, as you know, there's basically 4 choices of delivery. You can go with a public or Catholic school, which are the big public school boards. They're governed by the School Act. They have to teach the Alberta programs of study, and they offer online courses too, which is not home education. Then if you want to go to the independent schools, they are governed by the School Act. They usually have board of directors rather than trustees. They have to follow the Alberta Program of Studies, and some of them do offer online programming too, although they don't get as much funding as the big public or Catholic boards, which is 95% of the students in Alberta. Then there's charter schools. They have to follow the School Act, but they answer directly to the Minister of Education. They follow the Alberta Programs of Study, which are those grade-by-grade outcomes, and presently there's 1,400 outcomes to check off per grade. Some of them offer online programming too, and they get funded as much as the public or Catholic system. And then we have, in the bottom corner, home education. That is parent-controlled. Everything else, the other three quadrants, are school-controlled. Home education is parent-controlled. And parents follow the home education regulations under the School Act, and there's only 22 outcomes to follow for the child to reach by the time they get to age 19. So there's no grade-by-grade outcomes unless parents want to follow the Alberta Program of Studies, but a lot don't. A lot think they can provide a better education by choosing what is unique to the child and what the child wants to do. So, and some of that can be shared responsibility. So half of this quadrant and then half of something in the other three quadrants would be shared responsibility. In high school, it'd be 20%, 80%. And there's some funding for the home education portion, which goes, half of it is shared with the parent. And of course, the school delivered portion of the shared responsibility is funded. I present this because I want to make it clear at the outset that you want to ask yourself what your goal is in getting your child an education. So if they're pushing back to you, they're saying, I don't want to learn this, this is stupid, this is dumb. Ask yourself, why do you need to teach this at this time? Is it because you're following the Alberta Program of Studies? Well, if you're home education, you have flexibility to put things in the back burner, put it off till next year. Maybe put it off for 5 years until they're more motivated or they have the brain power to understand it. So you absolutely have that option and flexibility to present whatever you want. Now, if your concern is that your child's not doing the work and it is school provided, so it's from here, or from here, then your job as a parent is just to support the learning. Your job is to encourage them, find them tutoring if they need it, but basically that is school delivered, and your responsibilities are no more than a parent with a child in a physical school. If a parent and a child of a physical school doesn't do the work, what happens? Well, they get sent to the principal's office. The principal deals with it. They look at ways that the child could be more motivated. Maybe it's not their learning style. So the school tweaks the delivery and the curriculum a bit, and then the outcomes needed. And that is the same if that part is part of your shared responsibility. The responsibility for teaching your child falls within these other three quadrants. It's not your problem. It's this problem. So just think of yourself as a child or a parent of a child in a physical school. What would you do, right? Maybe you go in, have a meeting with the teachers and the principals, and you can certainly do that on the shared responsibility part of the program. Okay, so to recap, if your child's not doing work on home education, you have 100% flexibility to change things around. If your child's not doing work on these three programs, then talk to the teacher, talk to the principal, see how they can deliver it differently. Our greatest obligation is to prepare our children for effectiveness in the world they'll inherit, not the world they live in today. And there are lots of ways people learn, not just books and workbooks. If you look at adults, where do we learn? Most of what we learn, we're no longer going to school. We learn in different ways. So we had that same problem. The first year we did curriculum at our school at home type homeschooling. By November, my kids stopped listening to me. And I was pulling my hair out thinking, oh no, what am I going to do? If they don't learn it now, they're never going to get it. And I'm going to cover brain development stages later on, because that's really important to understand when your child's last chance to get it will be. And you'll be quite surprised. So we came to the decision, are we going to push the curriculum, or is our relationship more important? And that is what keeps home education wonderful, is that strength of relationship. They can always learn fractions any old time, but you want to keep building that relationship, building their love of learning. So let's look a bit at brain development. So, but from birth until age 6, your child's building so many brain connections between neurons. And then around age 7, it starts pruning, because this is not sustainable. The brain makes stronger those connections that are used a lot and prunes away those that are not used. So the most important in those first 7 years is parental relationship and attentiveness. And of course, language development, talk, read, sing, respond. Workbooks, not so much, but it's that parental interaction that's the most important. Now remember, Alberta Program of Studies, if you're following that rather than following your own program, it's outcome-based, not method. So you don't have to teach it using books. Schools have to teach it using books because they're dealing with 30 kids, and books are the most efficient way to deliver content. They can't take children out on a field trip every day. Absolutely can't. But you can. You can learn, teach your kids through going to the science center, through the zoo. It does not have to be bookwork. Until high school. High school is more bookwork just because there's a lot more content, even though, and they're delivering it in 3.5 months rather than, 5 months. I'm thinking university, 5 months instead of a whole year. And children by the age of high school are much more ready to sit down and study from a book. Elementary children, and to a certain extent junior high kids, are not ready for that type of learning. This is what people learn after 2 weeks and what they remember. And you can see that reading, looking at pictures, hearing words, writing, maybe 10 to 30% your child will remember. But if you look at the more interactive modes of learning, watching a movie, exhibits, watching a demo, seeing it done on location, participating in an activity, or just simulating the real experience, children and people remember much, much more. Although in my experience, my kids didn't remember much before age 12. When they got their abstract thinking skills and their executive function developed a lot more around age 13, when they're starting puberty, that is when they remembered the field trips we went on, some of the science experiments we did, the activities. They remembered some of their friends from that age. They didn't remember any of those things before age 12. So if your child's not doing the work and not getting it, don't worry. The teen years are when they will. Absolutely. Dr. Peter Gray, who has a PhD in psychology at Boston College, his research, he follows 75 unschoolers. And he found that the least structured education that children had from ages 0 to 18, the more likely they would be to go on and get accepted at post-secondary schools. So he looked at children in public schools and also children who did a structured formal homeschooling program. And he found that those who didn't have much structure were more likely to buckle down and accept structure the older they got. So let's look at brain development. I'm not going to talk about infants and toddlers. Well, let's start at preschoolers. But as you can see, that window between being born in that first year and then the first 7 years, this is where most the seeing, hearing, and language takes place. So the more kids talk, sing, the more we respond to them through words, the more they're going to learn. They have plenty of time for higher cognitive functions like textbooks as they're hitting more adult age and teen years. So that serve and return response is what children need in those first 13 years. Okay, I'm just moving through here. Alrighty, let's look at preschoolers. Okay, so preschoolers are about age 3 to 6. The brain develops from the brain stem more up to the brain and from the back of the brain more to the front. So preschoolers' brain development is more around the back here. That's where the focus is. So they're asking a lot of questions. They're really honing their imaginative thinking skills. And they're just mired in that whole world of fantasy, which is amazing, except when they're imagining monsters in the closet at night. But that's a good thing. Their cerebral cortex is developing very nicely here. But as you can see, they still have quite a short attention span. And that is why they don't go to formal school until age 6 or 7. Their compliance is very limited. About 40% of preschoolers under the age of 6, you ask them to do something, 60% of the time, they're not going to listen to you. And that is normal development. That's not a discipline issue. That's a development issue. When we ask people, can a 3-year-old play chess? Most people respond no, and that's true. A 3-year-old cannot play chess unless you have a prodigy because they don't have developed executive function. When you look at the 4 components of executive function, working memory, focus, self-control, and planning, 3-year-olds don't have that. Now, a 7-year-old can play chess pretty easily, right? When you think of what they need of executive function in playing chess. So working memory, they need to remember which way each of those pieces move. They need focus. They can't be distracted and plan out their next move. They need self-control, that ability to take turns and wait until the other person takes their turn. And planning, when their other person takes one of their pieces for a move they were planning, they have to have plan B. So as you can see, the executive function development from birth to age 3 is very, very low. And that's why we tell parents, you know what, just keep your house safe. Can't do a lot of teaching them because, yes, kids will learn, but they won't get it. And they won't have the self-control to listen. Even 4-year-olds, look at that. But by about 6 or 7, there is where the sweet spot is. That's why kids start school here. It's because they have that big leap in executive function control. From age 3 to 7, huge leap, and mostly around 5 and 6. Then you get to the school age years, the elementary school years. And yeah, they're going up a bit, but the last leap occurs between 13 and 25. That is the final leap of executive function and self-control. So then around age 13, you can expect your child to sit down and work probably about an hour at a time, same as an adult, and then take a break and then maybe do another hour. That is when you're going to get a lot more cooperation and that self-control to sit down and do big chunks of work. So from 6 to age 12, yes, they're getting it, but not quite. So from 6 to age 12, don't expect what you would expect at 18. So there's lots of years to learn what they need to learn. High school. Many unschoolers do a more formal program in high school without any knowledge of grade 1 to 8 through formal techniques like books and textbooks. They still learn it, but through more hands-on field trip, fun activities, not so much the book work. And then in high school, they're ready to buckle down and learn through textbooks, and they do just fine, very much fine. Okay, if you don't believe me, let's look at math. Math is one of the things that unschoolers have a hard time to let go of. But if you give kids no workbooks, no textbooks, they can learn all these areas of math that are in grades 1 to 8 through play. Absolutely. And here's some more they can learn through play. Coordinates and ordered pairs. My kids learned by playing Battleship. Roman numerals they learned by reading Asterix and Obelix books. So there's lots of ways kids can learn, not through workbooks. So then when they're starting to develop abstract concepts such as the Pythagorean theorem, then age 13, puberty starts, they're getting their executive function to be more disciplined, more self-controlled. Yes, then they can do a lot more things on paper. They can write essays, they can learn paper math and abstract concepts. Okay, and that is where the prefrontal cortex continues to develop, and also up until age 25. Okay, so how much time does homeschooling actually take? Really, even if you are doing book work, it shouldn't take more than 10 to 30 minutes in elementary, 1 hour a day for junior high, and maybe 2 to 3 hours a day for grade 12 if your child's doing one core and one option per semester, or 2 cores and 1 option per semester. And a lot of homeschoolers never finish a year. We're human, we get distracted, we have company, we get a trip that pops up that we want to take, someone gets sick, we have a crisis happen, and believe me, every family at some point in time experiences a crisis. And kids keep on learning, and you can just slot them into the next grade for the next year and they will pick it up. There's research out there from the Fraser Institute, very good research for skeptical family members. And I really love this. Somebody told me this when my kids were young. If the kids are crying, we stop for the day. If mom's crying, we stop for a year. Homeschooling should be relaxed. It should be fun. It should be about the joy and love of learning. Your children will get everything they need by adulthood to build skills and go on to post-secondary. But it may not be today, it may not be next week, and it may not be this year. Let it go. Don't force it. It will happen. Okay, so are there different ways to teach math? I mean, there's games out there. There's story problems for those kids that like words. You know, you can go to the playground and do some skip counting on those grids on their cement playgrounds. Have to go after hours maybe. There's music to listen to the times tables to. There's lots of hands-on manipulatives for children to play with. I remember these. My children would make little game cubes out of the blue ones. Lego is so great for math and science and all kinds of spatial activities. And just let them play with things. They will teach themselves amazing concepts. Amazing. Okay, what about reading? Again, all children learn to read at different ages. For example, my children learn to read as early as age 4 and as late as age 10. And it's like toilet training. No amount of drilling in phonics is going to teach that child to read any faster than what their brain development is going to let them. So every child has a pre-programmed time for learning to walk, talk, and same with reading. And schools like to think they teach reading, but every child learns it, cracks the code at their own schedule. Science and social studies, great things to learn interactively, not through a textbook during the elementary years. Although my kids learned all their science through Magic School Bus videos from grades 1 to grades 9. That's all they did. And a lot of experiments. And we went on a lot of field trips and traveled and went to museums and science centers and zoos. It was all interactive. Their first taste of bookwork, science, and social studies was in high school when they were ready to sit down and jump through the hoops. And I'd have to say 3 of my 5 kids went into STEM careers. How's that? Okay, there's lots of hands-on materials in stores out there. Here are some of the sources you can order from. And the last part is I'm going to go through some tips on if you want to insist on bookwork for the early years, that's fine. Everybody homeschools differently. But here's some tips for helping you get through that. Okay, first of all, give choices. Every child likes to feel they have some skin in the game. So if you can't give choices in subject matter, how about the time of day or the place of study? Okay, when's their best, most alert time of the day? For teens, I find that is at night. Oh my gosh, it drove me crazy when my teens would get on their online course at 11 o'clock at night and start doing their assignments. And we had to have a few meetings, and I said, you know, I can't help you with any questions at that time of the day because I'm going to bed. So if they needed my help, it'd have to be earlier in the day. But that was their most alert time of the day. So it worked for them. It just wasn't mine. For little kids, you know, it's more mornings, definitely mornings. They're much better in the mornings. 4 o'clock, just before dinner when everyone's tired and hangry, is not the best time. Even now, when my 17-year-old wakes up, I know he needs about 2 hours of gaming just to wake up with his coffee before we can attempt to do any high school work. In fact, he does it best after lunch. He games in the morning, we have lunch, and then that's a good time. That works for him, is right after lunch when he's fed. Tip number 2, alternate bookwork days with outing days. Try to not do them both on one day. Consider helping the child learn in a different way with an outing or field trip instead of books. Tip number 3, consider giving tests first, and then if the concepts are mastered, eliminate the text material. Really, it cuts down on boredom and busy work. Tip number 4, again, present the material in a fun way and geared to the child's learning style. Use aids such as movies, games, board games, action games. Children in elementary school love to learn through play, and the more it's play, the more fun it is. Follow their interests as much as possible. Tip number 5. If not in format, then in contact. For example, if your child has to write an essay or book report, perhaps they could choose the topic. You know, you can always write an essay on Fortnite. Tip number 6, use rewards if they work for your child. Stickers, passes for fun outings, computer time, or some choices from parents. I'm not a big stickler on rewards. I think learning is its own reward, but I know it does work for some parents. You could have a jar of 200 dimes, one for each school day. Anytime the child doesn't whine about schoolwork, put in 1 dime. And then the child can keep the money at the end of the year. Great motivators. I know for young kids, rewards work really well, and still into the school age years. By teens, yeah, not so much. By teens, you just keep reminding them, do you want a high school diploma? Is this your goal? Because the point in school where education is handed off to the child from the parent, they're working on it in grade 7, so 13. So 13, you're heading in the last third of childhood. That's the last third that you get to parent them until they're 18. And that's a good time they can start taking responsibility for their learning, their assignments, their relationships with their teachers, coaches, and tutors. Okay, tip number 7, avoid power struggles. Put your relationship building first. Try and approach learning another way or put it on hold for a while. Listen to why your child doesn't want to do the work. Is it too hard for them? Is it too easy? Is it not interesting enough? Tip number 8, for those hesitant writers, try being the scribe while a child dictates ideas. I often do this. So I sit at my laptop, I put my child on the other side of the table so he can't see what the screen is, and I say, tell me what you think. And I scribe what he thinks. And it comes a lot easier than if he's sitting on a laptop in the front of a blank Microsoft document thinking, I don't know where to start. So, and a good tip too, I learned too, is start with the body of a piece of writing first. And if you're teaching essays, start with the body first, then do the conclusion, then do your intro. And that way it gets ideas stimulated. Computers are great. Remember that in school, kids are taught to read and write early because most curriculums is delivered that way. Again, a lot of kids don't want to write until high school, and they pick it up really fast then too. Tip number 9, for hesitant readers, try picking up a book and reading it out loud. Your child might join you if it's not forced. Model reading yourself. Cuddle on the couch with a child and make reading a fun, cozy, exciting time, not a draggy time. Use vocal variety and stop when the child's not interested. Tip number 10, keep your routines and schedules going when you figure out the best time of day for bookwork. This has to work for you and your kids too. Remember that not all kids are morning people. Be kind and firm in sticking to a routine. Children do need some structure. Even unschoolers have structure in their life. There are certain days they go to certain events. There are certain times they have play dates. There are certain days they do family activities like meals. So we all need structure. But we need warmth too. We don't need punishment. Tip number 11, have a written contract each week, month, or year that is signed and agreed to by the child and the parent about what work must be completed for that time period. So that really works too. Sometimes a contract just submits the expectations that need to be communicated. The picture is my son, the computer programmer. He programmed that in. So if I went on to Facebook from writing my books, this would pop up. So that was a really good reminder. Tip number 12, work with the child that is most interested in the topic. Say you have one child that's particularly interested in science. Well, you know, the other siblings are going to join in because if one sibling's interested, yeah, they want a part too. But, you know, if they're not interested, wait a while. If the topic's forced, the retention of the knowledge will be not there. There has to be more interest. And there's lots of times to always go back and learn. Tip 13, some months and years are better than others. Children go through spurts and plateaus, and most do not learn in tidy sequential steps. Get over that expectation. They go through a plateau and trust that the desired motivation will come back. Kids want to know what they need to know to work in our society. You can't force a child to learn, and you can never stop a child from learning what they really, really, really want to know. Number 14, assimilation of material takes time. So plan for playtimes, downtimes, take a lot of breaks. Keep your study sessions short. Use a timer, have something fun to do after. And kids are more willing to work if they know that it's only 15 minutes of math and then they get a break. Tip number 15, create a learning environment of fun, curiosity, and good feelings. Make sure everyone's fed, rested, comfortable, and not stressed. And that was tip number 16. Exercise helps too. If children are sitting too much, they get fidgety, they can't concentrate, can't focus. Young children up until age 13 really need to burn off energy. They really do. And lastly, tip number 17, never punish for not doing the work. You want to create a climate for lifelong learning and enjoyment of knowledge. Remember, your job is to facilitate learning. You can't own it. Your child does. Nudge them, but don't force it. Keep thinking, we'll try again, another day, another way. And remember, you can't stop kids from learning what they want to know, and you can't force them. And we're all homeschoolers until age 6, and kids learn so much in those years. At some age, education must become more important to your child than you. And from age 13 to 17, that's a good time to start handing it off. Hand off the responsibility. There's lots of benefits with home education. And if you're new to this, don't worry. Everybody has challenges, and it's learning what child development is and learning what to expect. And it's the same as parenting. Many parents think, oh, I have to nip this in the bud. I have to get this down now, or we're never going to address it again. And it's not true. Your children from 13 to 18 are at a different stage of development. Their brains can handle so much more. Life will be easier. So if you need to put it off or put things on hold right now, there will always come another time that they will learn things. Okay, that's it. If you have any questions, feel free to email me at jarnall@shaw.ca. This was presented by Alberta Homeschooling Association. If you would like notice of more webinars coming up, we do one every month, the third Wednesday of every month. Sometimes I move it because I have a board meeting or I'm out traveling, or but I think from now on we will record these so we get a little library going. So sign up at our website, albertahomeschooling.ca, and you'll have notifications of what's coming up. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope that was helpful. And remember, this is such a fun time. You only get your kids for 18 years out of 80, so it's a short time. So don't fight over the work. There will always be another day, another way. Have a good evening.